I'm super stoked for this because the Giants had a monstrous draft, and we needed to give the split decision of New York. So to give us the Giants side of things, the great Bobby Skinner, who is absolutely killing it now, Giant Nation show. He is like the voice of Giant media as far as I'm concerned. Like when my Giant people want to talk to someone in the know, Skinner's their guy. Buddy boy, long overdue. I missed you. How you doing?
Doing good, man. This is like one of the weirdest weekends where nothing actually happens like that. You know, you play a game or anything. We put so much work into it, and then it's like, all right, Mr. Irrelevant, now it's over. It's like you don't know what to do with your hands for the next 2 months.
Oh, you're not kidding, man. It goes just like that, right? Like we're talking about all these prospects. There's all of this chatter about this guy, that guy, and now the dust is settled. We have our winners, we have our losers, and most importantly for the Giants, we know who the top picks are, and that's where I want to begin. Reese, when you're watching this on Thursday night, and when you're doing your live show, from a reaction of 1 being the least bit surprised, 10 being the most surprised, where were you when the Giants are up and Orville Reese is still on the board?
Well, unfortunately, around a 6 because the whole process never really considered Orville Reese. We did our work on him just because we wanted to do our due diligence. Never really considered him. And then earlier that day, I got a text from, like someone who kind of gives me some information being like, hey, if it's Jeremiah Love or Orville Reese are there, they're like running the turn in the card. And I just never maybe if the Jets go David Bailey, the card, but it always felt like Orville Reese wasn't going to be there. And then when he was there, they took him. Now, the surprising part is the fact that that's not their big need, right? And they, there's other great players there like Caleb Downs and stuff. They're going to have to figure out what to do with him, but he is extremely talented, right? Like it's just, sometimes it's as simple as just fast and physical, and that's what Orville Reese is just constantly fast and physical.
And he's a super freak, and how they use him is going to be fascinating, right? Because he's a young player, he's super talented, off-ball linebacker. The idea of developing him into being a pass rusher, this sort of, you've heard the comparison, and it's unfair, Bobby, this like baby Micah thing, right? Like where it's like, listen, if he can be 80% of the player or 85% of the player that Micah Parsons is, you're in really, really good shape if you're the Giants. But from a role standpoint, how do you anticipate in this new defense playing for John Harbaugh what Reese kind of brings? How do you see it?
Well, the Giants are like the weird team where they kind of can declare his position. He went to any other team and you're spending all camp talking about they're going to play both. He'd play a little bit of both, but the Giants have Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeaux. Like there's just, how often are you going to want to be putting him at edge? And, I think Brian Burns and Abdul Carter are just better at that position than him. I certainly think he could be better than Kayvon. And John Harbaugh said flat out, he's going to play weak side linebacker next to Tremaine Edmonds. There's, again, a guy, he is supremely talented, so he's got stuff to figure out there. But I kind of think they're going to put him in a situation, which John Harbaugh has done with other players like this, where it's like just run and chase, man. Just run and chase. Play fast, play strong. You'll make some mental mistakes, but just run and chase, and you're going to make enough great plays to counteract some of the, rookie mistakes you get where you don't read the right thing or something like that.
Okay, so Reese is the pick. Then you get to the second pick. And Bobby, listen, I did a video on this night before the draft. I love Caleb Downs. I think he's can't miss. That was a guy I wanted to see in a Giant uniform. I also wanted to see him in a Miami Dolphin uniform. I get none of the above. He ends up going to the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, Reese is the pick. They don't end up with the prototype that maybe you would have envisioned. Were you like, it's got to be Downs? Or when they go and take Mayanoa and they get their lineman, you say, I get it. Where were you on that?
Well, it's a terrible thing that the Giants did to me because they had 2 first-round picks, so that's exciting. But I spent the entirety of the draft except for 1 week preparing for one. And guess which 2 guys I was between? Caleb Downs and Francis Mauigoa the entire time. Those were the 2 guys I was between. So Caleb Downs was slightly above for me. Like I genuinely went back and forth all month of like, all right, who am I going to settle in on? And then when the Giants got that second pick, I was like, all right, cool. Caleb Downs at 5, Francis Mauigoa at number 10. But when they end up with Francis Mauigoa, I always lean offensive line, right? And guard, I believe Francis Mauigoa is a guard in the NFL, not just because the Giants have 2 tackles. The Giants need to reinvest into their offensive line, which is reinvesting into Jaxson Dart. I think he's someone who can do everything in the run game, and I think he's a pass protector. I know the Jets fans listening to this, he reminds me so much of Elijah Vera Tucker. Hopefully, without the injuries, like I think he has the ability to be an All-Pro guard, and I've really been wanting him ever since I watched him, last month.
And that's my feeling. Look, I would have taken Downs. That would have been my selection. But you can't look at it and say, oh, well, what are the Giants doing? They have a young quarterback. They want to have an infrastructure that's mean, that's tough, that's physical. And if they think they can bring in Marianoa, put him on the offensive line, slide him to that guard spot, then all of a sudden an offensive line that I thought last year, Bobby, for the most part, was solid, can maybe even go to that next level. Because, hey, you want to be a top team in the league. Having elite level offensive line play is one hell of a way to start.
Yeah, and last year was solid for them, and that was like a breath of fresh air because the Giants' offensive line has been so bad. But I've been imploring, anytime I get in front of a microphone, don't settle with this. Year to year is different, man. Andrew Thomas was healthy all last year. Jermaine Illuminor, all your interior guys were vets. Try and build this thing, right? We'll see how the good teams are just always good. They have that offensive line in place. And that's why I wanted Francis Mauigoa so badly, because I think he's just a Giants team that has Andrew Thomas, who's an elite player, but he's injury prone. He's my favorite player. He's an injury prone player. Jermaine Illuminor's 31 years old. He's got 2 years basically on his contract. They needed an investment for the long term, and I think that's what Mauigoa is hopefully going to be for them.
Okay, were you sick to your stomach that Caleb Downs ended up in Dallas?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He's a phenomenal player. He was for me the best player in the draft. But now that he's on the Cowboys, you just get to say, he's just a safety. Well, how much impact is a safety going to get? But I would have killed to have him on my team. I think he's a real deal player. I think what he does well is stopping what makes the best NFL QBs good. I did a video on him. I was like, these throws that he's taking away are the throws that Matthew Stafford won an MVP off of this year.
Okay, so you look at the draft as a whole, first round. We'll get to the later picks in a little bit. They trade Dexter Lawrence. And it was this dog and pony show. Are the Giants and Dexter Lawrence going to find common ground? Then it comes out Dexter Lawrence maybe not happy about things behind the scenes. And listen, Giants had Dex for a long period of time. I didn't think he was particularly great last year, but listen, he's still a tremendous defensive tackle. He's still one of the best at his position in the league. And you made the best of a bad situation. That's the way I look at it. I thought if Dexter Lawrence is getting traded, you get a first-round pick, it's going to be in the late 20s. I was kind of targeting the Chicago Bears. You end up with a top 10 pick. Was that one for you, Bobby, where you're like, I'm bummed he's gone, but I get it, and I'm okay getting that 10th pick? Or do you still kind of have this sort of what could have been as far as losing Dex?
I would have loved to keep Dex. I was extremely anti-pick drafting him into the late first, trading him for the late first round. Because the likelihood of getting return on investment is there. So it was it being the top 10 pick from the Bengals, that was kind of, like you said, making the best out of a bad situation. I think he's got a lot of good years left. I think sometimes what happens is when things go sour, we look at last year was a down year for Dexter Lawrence. Okay, look at the on-off splits with him. They were the worst team in the NFL with him off the field, and middle of the pack defense with him on the field, and above average some areas. 7th in pass rush win rate, and see a down year. I don't believe that was the beginning of a downward trend. He came in the training camp out of shape. That's a fact. That's BS. The Giants just gave him all of training camp off. They didn't try and get him in shape. And then what a tumultuous season it was. Carl Banks made him a headline for 2 weeks, and then once that died down, they fired Brian Dable. Then they fired the defensive coordinator 2 weeks later. Then they fired the assistant D-line coach, all while the second straight year of losing 9 games in a row. That's got to be weighing on you. I thought that a new contract would get him refreshed and bought back in, but the Giants just didn't want to budge with 2 years left, and then it got ugly, and then, like you said, making the best out of a bad situation.
All right, second round. Surprised Hood was there? Did you have him as a first-round pick, or not necessarily?
No, I didn't. But I wasn't surprised he's there. I just actually was in the middle of for the listeners, I was recording a video on Colton Hood, and I was like, oh damn, I'm supposed to go on with JJ.
Look at that. See, we appreciate that. That's Bobby being a man of the people. He's going to take care of you. He's taking care of me. Everybody wins. Let's go.
He's extremely athletic. He's sticky in press coverage. But he does have some flaws where it's just at corner, I feel like you have to be a little picky. Corner is the most picky I am, judging a player in the college, because you're going to face way different talent. And it's the one position where we really do judge you at offensive tackle too. where we judge you really on about 10% of the plays in a game, right? You can be sticky in 90%. If you give up 4 catches for 65 yards, that's a bad day. But he's an extremely talented player. He's versatile, and I know that's going to be big in the Denard Wilson defensive scheme. So he's kind of a ball of clay young player for them, and it's up to them to make the most out of him.
Were you a fan of the pick?
I want a defensive tackle, and not just because it's the biggest need on the Giants, but because I really like the guys that were there. Kristen Miller from Georgia. They got jumped by the Texans for Caden McDonald out of Ohio State.
I was going to say, McDonald was the guy I felt like everybody wanted in the second round, Bobby, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Texans flat out knew that. They looked at the defensive tackle depth chart and saw some names that they had probably never seen before and jumped the Giants. So I would have went defensive tackle, but corner, not the biggest need, but probably a very underrated need on the Giants. I mean, Adebo had a bad year last year. Greg Newsome has been bad the last few years. So they desperately needed that as well, too.
Okay, let's get to Malachi Fields. Big boy, coming out of Notre Dame. What's the expectation level year one? Because the Giants have revamped this wide receiver room. It is going to look drastically different than what it was a year ago. Is Fields more of a project, or is this a guy you think, okay, he can have a big role on this team?
He's kind of an easy guy. And it's also, he's like at the opposite of Colton Hood, where it's like, 75% I'm not in love with this, but he fits exactly what Jaxson Dart does well. Or maybe not even does well, but does a lot. Jaxson Dart throws the deep ball at the second highest rate in the NFL. He also didn't complete a ton, but he didn't have a bunch of ball winners or anybody on the team, right? 5'8" Wandale, Slayton, had a terrible year last year, and the Neighbors wasn't there. He just makes wild contested catches. And so if Dart's going to throw those, and they might be a little bit, slightly underthrown or a little bit overthrown or, to the side a little bit, Malachi Fields makes those plays. Now, I do think he kind of has a ceiling as a wide receiver too, and it's the 3rd round pick. So that's where he belonged. He's not going to separate. He's not going to, he didn't have any 100-yard games last year, but he does fit exactly what Jaxson Dart does well. It's just whatever your expectations are for you. I feel like you have to calibrate them a little bit to be like, this is not going to be your top of the NFL type of wide receiver too.
Okay, Bobby, a lot of change and a lot of improvement on the roster. Let's take coach out of it because we all expect that the Harbaugh impact is going to be instant as far as the credibility, as far as the accountability, and basically stuff he brought in Baltimore for years. It's funny, like, I have a lot of Raven fans in my life, and they're all, like, in a way happy he's gone. And I'm like, guys, listen, this was change for both sides here. Like, the Giants are going to get the best of John Harbaugh. He's going to be motivated. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He's probably going to be refreshed with the change. And it's okay for Baltimore, too, because, listen, there's a shelf life for coaches. There's a shelf life for people in a certain job. So everybody can win here. They can win with Minter. Giants can win with Harbaugh. Let's take coaching out of it, though, Bobby. What is the improvement you are the most excited about based upon what this team has done in both free agency and the draft?
I'll say the offensive line / run game. And I guess we're taking coaching out of it. Here's the thing is they didn't really revamp the roster very much in free agency. If anything, you can argue they lost Wandale Robinson, Cordell Flott. They didn't add anybody to the defensive tackle room, although we expect some vets. But now with Maui Noah replacing Greg Van Roten, like you said, it was already a solid offensive line. You add Patrick Ricard, the fullback, who I think
love him, Bobby. Love him.
People are gonna roll their eyes at that. I think that makes a real difference. And now you actually have a real run game that's not just Jaxson Dart and zone reads and using his legs, something you could build on. I think that, and then you add Isaiah Likely, so you can run 2 tight end stuff. I think it's just the offensive structure is going to be improved, where it's not so just Jaxson Dart be a hero, Cam Scatterbo make some plays, or throw the ball to Malik Neighbors. Like, there'll be actual structure. Defensively, I have huge worries about defensively where they are. I do think they've downgraded at the corner room. I understand I just talked about Colton Hood. Just don't use day 2 and day 3 picks to say the roster improved. We always put too high of expectations of the player. Year 1, if they're good, that's found money for you. The defensive tackle room is a mess, and you can have all this pass rush juice of Abdul Burns, Arvell Reese, Kayvon, but the spine of your defense is extremely weak, and that can be just something that derails your season. And with a secondary behind it, that is just not something anybody's writing home about.
Bobby, can they find answers at D tackle in free agency, or is that grasping at straws?
They can find answers to allow them to be operationable. DJ Reader's been thrown out there, Shelby Harris, but not answers that are going to make them like good. But but right now, if they stayed the way they are right now, it's the worst defensive tackle room ever assembled. If they add those guys, it's just a bad defensive tackle room.
Understood. Okay, Dart. A lot of promise in year one. A lot of people excited to see what he can do in year two. Do you look at the injury stuff and say it's justified and fair, or is it a little overblown?
I think it's overblown. Now, he can't be stupid. There was games last year before Dable got fired where Dable 2-minute drill down 21. And
he's running them into the ground. Correct.
That's stupid. That's dumb on the coaching staff part. There was also times where you could tell he was pissed off, like down 14 against the 49ers and with 4 minutes left, and he's just putting his shoulder through guys. Like, stop. You can't do that. But you're never going to take away that full competitive edge. I don't know if he did have the one concussion, missed 2 games. The blue tent thing got a little overblown, where it's like going to the blue tent is not an actual injury. In fact, the one time he was concussed, they didn't even send him to the blue tent. So they were the concussion spotters were 0 for 5 in spotting a concussion with him. The thing for him is just finding a more balanced passing from the pocket, right? All of his success really came from running and then, making in the backfield. That's going to be the key for Jaxson Dart is making plays from pocket. Those things help you grow as you develop in that way, but eventually he just has to develop where he's winning from the pocket a little more.
You want to help me be a detective for a second?
Let's get it. That's what I'm perfect for these next 2 months.
I was going to say, Bobby Skinner, detective, sign me up. This Thibodeaux stuff on Instagram. All these athletes do it. It's mind games. I had Tyreek Hill on my football team for years, so, I'm used to the cryptic tweets, Instagram stories, the whole deal. Is that a ticket out of town, or is Kayvon Thibodeaux messing around?
The Giants wanted to trade him. They just didn't get the offer that they wanted. They wanted a 3rd-round pick. So the Giants don't win the trade deadline. Let's see what happens. But the Giants did want to trade Kayvon Thibodeaux. Like I 99% believe that. And the Saints were the team I had heard before that thing had came out anyways. But again, it felt like the asking price wasn't correct for the Giants. The issue, and I'll say this with Kayvon, the Giants need to do is either shit or get off the pot because he's not going to get any cheaper, right? So if they want to keep him, sign him now. Eventually, you're going to have somebody that's overpaid on your team. I feel like the Giants have operated over the last years with Joe Shane is nobody. Like, we don't want to overpay anybody. And when you don't overpay anybody, you just don't keep any players. If they let Kayvon go, that's 3 straight draft classes with none of their players given real contracts, except for, fake Evan Neal and Josh Azudu, 1-year minimum deals where they'll get cut in training camp. So whatever decision they make, they should make it. They're not going to be a team that's going to be winning a ton of games this year. So if they're not going to re-sign him, either trade him. And if they want to keep him, just put that uncomfortable dollar amount out there now because it's not going to get any cheaper in a year.
So that's interesting. You just said you don't think they're going to win a lot of games this year. A lot of Giant fans in my life, Bobby. You know a couple of them. They're going to look at the team, and this is the unfair nature of the NFL. What Mike Vrabel did with the New England Patriots, like I have Giant fans in my life saying, hey, this can be our team. This is what can happen. And the NFL has examples of this. Dallas is really good. I think they're going to be significantly improved on defense. Full year Quinn Williams and Caleb Downs. That offense is studly. Philadelphia, I know the whole A.J. Brown subplot, but he's going to be gone. They know how to find talent. They know what they're doing. I don't like Washington. I think they got a ton of problems. I think Quinn's going to be fired at the end of the year. But be that as it may, what are realistic expectations for John Harbaugh in year one? Because, listen, the Giants have been an unmitigated disaster. So to me, if they're a competent football team and playing meaningful games in December, that is in theory a step in the right direction. But there's a lot of work to do on the roster. So where do you kind of stand on that?
Well, before Dex was traded, I was saying playoffs aren't my prediction, but they are my expectation because it's such a low bar. Like because the Giants, hell, and I know your Dolphins haven't won a playoff game, and I think they have the record. Like because and then the Jets have the longest. So this podcast is the worst podcast to have this conversation.
Oh, tell me about it. My team, the 2 teams that I talk about on a regular basis. You know what, though, Bobby, for you guys, and I get it, it has been awful literally since Tom Coughlin has walked out the door. There's so much goodwill, though. Like, and listen, if I were a Giant fan, I'd be pissed off because the last 7-8 years have been a disgrace. That said, like I have those Super Bowl trophies, like
Yes,
that,
yeah. So
it helps.
I'll trade for it, but playoffs. So us three, the listeners, me and you, forget sometimes the playoffs are such a low bar in the NFL.
Yeah,
that doesn't even make you a good Yeah, Jaxson Dart can really improve. They get a little better coaching out of it. But the reality is that's kind of the case for every team. It's like, hey, if their young QB, turns into a top 8 quarterback in the NFL. Now, Dart showed some good things, and that is my hope for them this year. It's just Jaxson Dart takes that step forward. He's the guy, and then if he is, they should be a playoff team. But the reality is if they do sneak into the playoffs, nobody's looking like, yeah, that's just a really good team that got in the playoffs. It's like, man, they won some tight games. The Dex trade changed. The Dex trade changed it for me though, to where it's just this might be a struggle in year one. Now they can win some close, like you said, win some close games, get coaching out of them. They can squeeze out 7 to 9 wins, but I think we all realistically view that as like the hopeful part of this team.
Bobby, final one. I had Jerry Ferrara on a couple weeks ago, Entourage staple. He said that Dart and Scatterboo would have been great Entourage cameos. Like, if they ever do a reboot of Entourage, those guys got to be on, right? I mean, they're must-see entertainment. Anytime, anywhere they go, I just can't get enough of those guys.
They got to get a whole season, and they're not even just cameos. Like, at least Scatterboo. Dart probably, would cost too much to get him in the full season. Scatterboo will do anything, so Scatterboo might go on there for free. So I think Jerry can pull that one off.
We got to work on that. Bobby, you guys are killing it. Giant Nation Show, you, Jordan Renan, 2 of my favorites. So I love the fact that you guys are working together. Do you golf, Bobby?
No, not
we got to get on that,
often.
so that way me, you, and Renan, well, you could come hang and have some cocktails. You know what I mean? You come hang with us.
Hey, I'll swing a club though, right? I mean, it's going to go way to the right, but it's going to go far.
Well, how about this?
So I can swing a club.
If you get your ass up here for training camp, then
West Virginia. It's going to be in West Virginia. You got to come to West Virginia with me and Jordan.
That's right. You happy about that or no?
So I feel bad for the fans because they don't get to be there, and I also wish they'd go back to Albany. But as someone who just lives for that like nitty gritty football stuff, I love.
There's
that I'm
something cool
be
about it.
Summer in West Virginia.
Listen, I did Cortland for the Jets when I was up at Syracuse, and it's a vibe, man. You're on a college campus. The guys are in dorms. It
doesn't exist
nowhere.
anymore. That's like a vibe that doesn't exist anymore. So to be able to, it'll feel like going back in time. Where it's just, hey, it's you, the diehard fans, the beat reporters, and the players in some random town in West Virginia.
Bobby, you're killing it, man. Keep up the good work. We'll chat close to the season, all right?
Thanks, dude. Appreciate you.